Hi, I'm Nick Viall, and I am today's Man of the Hour.
Hey friends, welcome back. Nick Viall from the Bachelor and Bachelorette Nation. It's a big one, and although we would assume that this handsome young gentleman would take all of his celebrity and fame, come off of those shows, and just sit on the fame, but he didn't. Nick's been busier than ever hosting his own podcast, the Viall Files, with over 200 episodes. You can find that anywhere you'd like to listen to your podcast. And he created his own company, Natural Habits. I can't tell you how excited I am. He said yes to coming on the show. We are sitting on a Zoom call right now because that's essentially how these things got to rock and roll for the most part. Nick Viall, dude, here you are. Welcome. Thanks for being here, man.
No, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Let's do it. It's going to be a whole hour, man. It's going to, and I think there's a lot to get into, but to start things off, I do want to ask you how 2021 has been for you, and if anything's been cooking, man.
Oh, it's been good. I mean, I think the world's a little crazy. I think some of us expected the world maybe to try to calm down a little bit, but then we had, January 6th and then the inauguration. And I think, in my world, I'm still involved in Bachelor Nation in that regard. And we've had the, kind of unfortunate stuff go on with Chris Harrison. And, Rachel is a dear friend of mine. I consider Chris a friend. So that's stressful when you have two friends in difficult situations, but overall, I feel very fortunate to have what's going on in my life, the podcast. I was lucky enough to see my parents recently, and I haven't been able to see them in a while. And mom had COVID pretty bad, and that was a little scary. So all in all, life's good. You just try to appreciate the good moments because, as we all know, in the world, it can feel a little hectic.
Yeah, I said that the other day too. I started asking myself, I was like, what are the little things that I can appreciate on the daily? I got this little notebook called The Routine, and to ask you, like, what are your top 5 things of the day? So I actually wanted to ask you that too. I don't know if you journal, right? I certainly journal every morning, at least to just write down the top 5 things I'm appreciative of. But share those with us if you had to give us 5.
I don't journal, so you're putting me on the spot a little bit. So top 5 things I'm most. I mean, I journal in my head. I've conversations.
Let's lay them out over
with my head.
audio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm thankful for coffee. That sounds silly, but I gotta say,
yeah.
I was thinking about this the other week. Maybe it says I'm getting older, I'm more boring, but the more like waking up and making coffee and blending it, the whole routine of I get whole coffee beans, I blend it and I put it in a coffee machine, and then I pour a glass or a cup or whatever, and I get on my phone and start the day and check. I love that. I love that moment in the day. And I'm really thankful for that moment. It's really kind of a meditation, Zen kind of moment for me. And I don't take that moment lightly. I'm very grateful for that because it's like, we don't have concerts right now. We can't really go to the movies, but I have that still, and I'm thankful for it.
Appreciate the coffee, man.
Just that moment of waking up to coffee. Let's see. I'm very much grateful for having work, especially during a pandemic, and staying busy, and I'm thankful for my audience and Viall Files. And I it sounds cheesy. I love what I do. It's a lot of fun. It can get stressful, but I do truly have fun doing it, and I am thankful for that. And family, friends, the people in your lives, and my girlfriend included in that. And how many are we at? We at 4?
Yeah, you got 4. Let's make it 5. I think that's good, dude, because you included your fans into the Viall Files. Thinking about it though, first of all, coffee, yes, I second it, because it's meditating in the morning. It's the first thing you do.
Oh,
Get
I
you
love
excited
that
about
moment.
that.
Like,
But
even
if you're
talking about it, I'm excited. Yeah.
But if you actually think about it, it's because we're slightly addicted to it. But I've always been told, like, if you can grab a coffee cup instead of your cell phone in the morning, you're already starting it off on the right foot. If you think about it in that sense, right?
Yeah.
I love that, dude. And we'll get to. I actually wanted to ask you about work-life balance that doesn't really exist, I think, in the entertainment and media industry, but we'll get to a little later on this episode with you. Take us back in time for just a minute, Nick, because I feel like after you've lived a life of reality TV, like you did the triple threat run, and I think you've been one of the only ones in history to have done such a thing, to be on 2 Bachelorette shows, to be on your own Bachelor show, and then to like kind of live this life of finding relationship through the lens of reality TV. And you just mentioned you're probably still friends with everybody in the nation of Bachelor and Bachelorette. But before then, right, you had a corporate job at Salesforce, and you had gotten your business degree, and you were acting a little, you were modeling a little. what at some point did you start thinking that you were going to start dabbling into all these things, which eventually led you into saying yes to these reality shows?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, also sometimes it's hard to
Hard to
answer that question,
explain.
but even to like to explain it without having almost like sounding like a narcissistic in a way where,
He's like, well,
like,
I look good. Of course I was a
no,
model.
not even that, but like sometimes, like I grew up in a small town in Milwaukee. Well, Milwaukee's not that small, but Wisconsin is a city, and Wisconsin's a city. No, Milwaukee's a city, but it's a small. You get what I'm saying. I sound great. Sound smart. But yeah, there's always, I was very thankful to have the job, and I loved my career. But like, sometimes I just always felt like, I liked my job, right?
Mm,
I still said the word job, and I don't say that now. And there were moments where I just kind of felt like I didn't really know what it was, but I just felt like I'm not doing the thing I'm the best at. Like,
mm,
I was good. I'm good at sales. Like I could talk, but do I feel like I was really achieving anything? Not really. I
mm,
didn't feel a sense of pride in what I was doing. I had
mm.
moments of pride, but not overall. And I think, that like feeling like you're missing that, I think was, maybe part of the reason why I even said yes to such a crazy thing like The Bachelor, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like, it's not like I didn't have anything going on. I had plenty of people.
He's like, I was busy as hell and I
Like,
still said yes to
like
go
I
with
had
it.
a real job, and I got lucky because, had they said no, I wouldn't have gone. But they gave me the permission to take that risk and kind of and come back if it didn't work out. And I'll always be indebted to them for that. And
Mm.
yeah, there's just a little something where you're just like, there. I apparently must have had something missing because if I didn't think that, I would have been like, why would I go on this reality TV show?
Mm.
And because it's when I said yes, it wasn't because I didn't think it was ridiculous. Like,
Sure.
people always ask you why are there right reasons and things like that. And I think if anyone's honest, they just are. It sounds like a very exciting experience, and
Right.
I was grateful for my life, but I think maybe it was missing some sort of excitement that I wasn't getting, and I must have said yes, in partly because of that.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of people trip up on their own words on those shows, for example. I've actually, between you and I will, everybody's going to hate me for saying this. I have yet to watch a full episode of the show. Here's why. Because I feel like the real you guys is, yes, part of the reality show and what's happening in that world. But then there's also so much depth, which we'll get to on your episode now, as to who you guys are as people. But I have not seen The Bachelor or Bachelorette, like a full episode of the show,
Yeah.
but I have heard a lot about it, right? That uh here I am interviewing you, right? I haven't seen an episode, but that might be a good thing, right? So take note. And
Yeah.
but these shows do something to you where it's almost like you're forced to feel like you have to say the right thing and you have to be there for the right reasons and stuff. And you'd been on 3 seasons of the entire franchise. Was there a point when you realized that you were no longer kind of there for the right reasons, maybe? And what made you say yes to like 2 other seasons?
Well, I mean, they're all very different. The first time I said yes for the experience.
Yep.
Part of it was like, oh, you get to travel, and up until that point, being witness number 3 in the 5 o'clock local news was like sounded cool in an
Yep.
entertainment
Yep.
standpoint. So obviously this was a step up. So that sounded exciting. The
Yep.
second time it went on was a unique experience. It was like, not sound corny, it was for the girl. I had interactions with the girl. I knew the girl. I literally went for the girl. And that's really just the honest answer about that. And then the third time, Paradise, that was for fun, because Paradise is the spin-off show. Everyone kind of goes on the beach.
It's
Everyone
like a big
knows, like,
reunion.
yeah. And it's not the same concept because you're not going there with one person. You're just kind of going and hanging out with a group of friends. A lot of the people I was going down with, I had known, I was friends with, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, sure, I'll go on a beach for 3 weeks. And then they asked me to be the Bachelor, and so I mean, if I'm being honest, you asked you like it sounds like a big opportunity, and I said
Yeah.
yes because I thought it would be an incredible opportunity. And once I was given that opportunity, it's then you say yes to be very open-minded and wanting to make a relationship work, because
Mm,
you don't call up the Bachelor producers and say, hey, I can't find love, and I just need to be the Bachelor so I can find, like, it's like, it's not like a last
That's so
resort.
yeah.
The role of the Bachelor is to like find someone.
Uh-huh.
And so once I agreed to that, then I was very earnestly committed to finding someone, and quite frankly scared that I wouldn't, as I
Yeah.
think everyone in that position feels that way. But
Hmm.
yeah, so each time I went on had a very, there was some luck, some coincidence, some, all those things, but each decision had different reasons behind it.
I love that. You know what I just noticed too? I'm glad we're not a live TV show. I'm gonna have to cut the podcast in just a sec. You see the sign behind me, bro? This is how you know I've been looking at you the whole time, and you've been
Oh,
looking at the.
it just
I
tilted.
kind of low key want to leave it like this. This is the third time it's happened. It
It
happened.
wasn't like that the whole time. It just did that.
Just did it, but I want to see. I
Earlier.
want to keep everything you said of that last answer, so I'm leaving this
All
shit
right.
up. Part of this, the problem with this stupid thing, if it happens again, fuck it, bro. I'm gonna take it down. Anyway, Peter Facinelli came on, and same thing happened. We had to cut midway, but no, I love what you just said about all that, bro. But Nick, was there a moment too when you realized on these shows that you were inching closer and closer to celebrity and fame finding you? So for example, you get on these shows, everybody starts realizing immediately who you are. You express your entire life, and you open up the can of worms to the entirety of who Nick Viall is during these shows. But
Yeah.
was there a moment, maybe season 1 of The Bachelorette for you, or your season 1, that you realized like, oh shit, I'm in for what I really didn't think I signed up for?
Well, yes, but not, I guess, different than the way you asked it. I mean, like I think my first time on The Bachelorette was almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was a while ago, and certainly Instagram and social media existed, but not in the way it exists now, right? It's not the behemoth that it is now. And so when I first went on the show, in terms of like, fame or things
Yeah.
like that, I was lucky enough that I went on at an age where I was really level-headed about what I was doing. Like this wasn't about, the playbook of like I don't even know if the word influencer was, part of like, common vocabulary.
Sure.
You knew who Kim Kardashian was, but like what it is now, it was not what it was even, 7 years ago. But I assumed that I'd get a bump in Instagram followers and thought that was pretty cool, and I thought like that would be kind of neat to go out to the bars in Chicago, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I had all these. I mean, when I got off the show, I was back at work the next day. Like it was, I'm doing this thing, I'm going back to work, and I went back to work for a year before I went back on again. So that first time,
Yeah.
it certainly wasn't. It definitely wasn't about fame and fortune. But that being said, while I was recording it and filming the episode, I know you didn't watch, but I was kind of the villain the first time. And
Yeah.
there was a point during the season where I was just like, everyone's yelling at me. And I don't know why, but I feel like I might be in trouble, kind of thing. And so you kind of have that kind of out of body experience of like, oh shit, this is not what I expected. But so yeah, kind of two different answers there. But and then, certainly when you're asked to be the Bachelor, it's that was 3 years after I was first on the show. Social media
Yeah.
was already different then. And being the Bachelor is a big deal. It's a lot different than being one of 25 guys on the Bachelorette. And certainly I was self-aware of that opportunity and the platform it would give me, for sure.
Man, because you said out of body, and I start thinking to myself like, dang, I could only imagine, dude, at some point when your talent, save, right, quote unquote, influencer aside, like when your talent on a show and you have producers whispering in your IFB and you have things happening before and after the taping, and this whole world is just so abstract to the viewer. But then you look at guys like you and I, like I'm interviewing you right now, right? Or you've interviewed people on your podcast.
Yeah.
And there's just like a different, I guess it is out of body. You start feeling like at some point you're playing a role. So I wanted to ask you about that. When you were on,
kind of weird. Well, you say talent, right? Like I know what that means now, but for a longest time, people would refer to talent and be like, "Who? What are you talking about?"
Right.
And they're like, "No, you, like you're on the show.
Your talent."
And I was
it's
like,
like,
"Oh,
but no, my name is Nick."
Oh, okay, cool." I didn't understand like any of that stuff. So also that's been kind of fun to learn. But yeah, it's a very bizarre and unique. I'm grateful that I started it now. I think I was left with a little innocence. And what I mean by that is I think for all, again, you don't watch the show, but like right reasons is a popular saying in Bachelor Nation for viewers and how they critique, are you there for the right reasons? And that's always been the case. It's always been the case since the show
Yeah.
started. But I think only until recently, since social media has become what it was, and now there's like this perceived influencer playbook that like you can actually question people authentic, and like you can't help it because you can't go on the show and not be aware of what other people have done with that, right? That playbook is now out there, and before there wasn't the playbook, right? So I had a little bit more innocence about the experience than I think people who go into it now. Even if it's harder to be more authentic, I think, because you see it's like, well, I guess if I go on the show, I mean,
I'll be fine.
what does this mean? Like, wow, look at what so and so did with this. Like, it's different now. It wasn't that way 7 years ago.
Oh man, well, I'm glad you did it 7 years ago, not today. What do you think to yourself when you hear people talking about, I want to get on The Bachelor, Bachelorette. I want to be a contestant. I hope some talent agent calls me so I can get on the show and become famous.
I mean, I kind of just joke with people if they ask. I mean, if they ask me if I should go on, it's more, what do you have to give up to go on?
Yeah.
Do you have a job? Do you like your job? Again, I was someone, I had a job, but I didn't have to choose.
Yeah.
And it all worked out for me, sure. But I got lucky and I was fortunate and I was lucky enough to have an employer that was cool about that. I wouldn't recommend someone quitting a career or a job they love to go on. If they don't have to quit their career or job, then go for it. Because once you go on, there is a ton of luck involved. There's a lot of coincidence, like it's not this like scripted, staged event that they predict the outcome before it starts. Like there are some like real conversations. The person, whoever the lead is, the bachelorette or bachelor, like has a lot of say. And who they get, like they have all the say who they get engaged with, and they have a lot of say in who goes to the top 4 or 5. Like it is a TV show, but like if they don't like you, they don't like it. And there's so
wait, Nick, can you keep this one chick, please? Just everybody likes her, and if you don't, just keep her until the final 4.
Yeah. I mean, what I always tell people when they ask the questions, they never tell you have to send someone home that you are sincerely wanting to get to know. And in most cases, that's a limited number of people. So the rest of the people who are involved are kind of like fair game and up for helping to make a TV show. But there is a lot of luck involved. And so when people ask, I'm just honest with about, set reasonable expectations. Like I wouldn't give up much to go on, is kind of the feedback I would, and you have to get lucky. There's a little bit of lottery involved.
Yeah, man. All the education. I could say like the first half of our conversation could have been educational, but you're teaching me a lot here. I want to talk about the Viall Files. 2019, you're about over 200 episodes into the show now, man. Congratulations, first of all. What made you want to do this? I mean, when people launch podcasts, I mean, we know it's a big market now than it ever was, but you kind of took it on in 2019 when you were thinking about your listeners and what they were going to get out of your show. What was your main goal with it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't like an early adopter, but it's crazy. I thought I was getting into the game late, and then in the past 2 years, it's probably doubled in size in terms of the shows that are out there.
Yeah.
I like talking. I'm an analytical thinker.
We got a good guest on the show then, right?
I've always was the guy with friends who people would come to for dating advice. And I knew I was good at that. I knew I just had a way of reading people and taking information and then, digesting it and then spitting it back out in like a way that might be a little snappy or and think of it in a different way. And I knew I was good at that, but I was really reluctant because a lot of my peers had already had podcasts, and I wanted to do something, that wasn't like, that was different. And then finally I just said, well, screw it. I'll do it. And it took off, and I've learned a lot along the way. And I, started with, it started as one show. Now it's broken into 3 different formats. And like the first one was just kind of all 3 formats squeezed into a single episode, and we decided to separate them. And I seem to have a knack for it, and it's taught me a lot. It's allowed me meet a lot of interesting people, and I feel like we've built a community around people who are just kind of interested in different aspects of dating and relationships. And while I am good at giving advice, I don't take the role of an expert, right?
Mm,
I'm not. I don't have any training. I'm not a therapist. Everything I've learned is kind of on the street, so to speak, and we have experts on our show, but
yeah.
it's and so that's allowed me to learn, but also I'm not trying to get too much. I'm not trying to get credibility I don't deserve with my audience. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to. I'm not a doctor, so I don't call myself a doctor, and
Yep.
I don't call myself an expert in things that I'm not an expert in. I just share what I think, and then we all kind of learn together through some of the people we have on, and it's been a ton of fun.
Oh man, you keep doing it. Keep rocking and rolling, buddy. I've tuned in a couple episodes and I think there's a lot. Like you said, if you have a knack for talking and kind of like laying it out for people. The second you said you were a quick thinker and you like to pretty much take information, regurgitate it in a way that probably help people understand, I would almost think you'd want to be a comedian with your career. Maybe that's something you can get into, right? Because if
I
you're
was
quick on
taking
your
some
feet.
stand up. I was taking stand up classes right when the pandemic hit.
Oh shit! Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's been fun in the entertainment business. I've done, improv, and I do acting, and I've used like listen, it's been a really cool. I've been really lucky and really cool experience, and some of the opportunities that the Bachelor has brought me and the platform it's
Sure.
giving me, and then obviously the success of the Viall Files, it allows me to work on some of this other stuff that, quite frankly, I have to play the long game, right? That I
Yeah.
probably will never maybe make it, but like it's just to be considered a paid actor, and having been on shows
Yep.
is incredible. When I think 7 years ago I was slinging software, so like it's all gravy. And then we'll see what happens. But
We'll
it's been
see what
fun
happens.
to tap into a lot of creative aspects that I kind of put in the wayside. Like when I was a younger kid, my dream was to be a cartoonist for Disney, and I kind of stopped drawing, and I stopped art and focused on sports, and kind of thought more analytically and just kind of tapped into that side of my brain, and I
Hmm.
kind of got away from the creative aspects. And it's been fun to be a lot more creative, and use those muscles that I kind of stopped using for a good 20 years of my life.
Yeah. And then you mentioned like, at some point you got to realize that there's never too much that you can be doing. I often think that, as long as you have your foundations, which essentially were your experiences on The Bachelor, the continued platform that they give you, but then also your company, Natural Habits, your podcast, your social. There's a lot of things there that are already built and kind of grounded that then allows you to go seesaw back and forth with these other opportunities like acting and stuff. I mean, people will
Yeah.
look at you, for example, and I wanted to bring this up earlier, and I guess I alluded to it a second ago when we first started the show, when I had asked, like, what made you want to get into so many different things? And again, like you're going from working at Salesforce for so many years, and then you said yes to these shows, and but between that, you were acting and modeling, and now I guess people when they look at you, I'm often asked the question like, wait, what do you do? And I don't tell people. I'm like, oh, I just do a couple of things, and we're just
I hate
have
that question. What do you do?
wait, let's talk about it because I do too. I actually fucking hate it. So I've always
Well,
asked like,
because people are so quick to, like, you wouldn't walk up to someone and say, "How much money do you make?"
correct. Well, in New York they do
Right?
that. New York they do that, and they
Oh,
ask you
yeah.
what
I
your
mean, I'm
rent
sure
is.
I'm sure people do, but I'm saying in general, I think the average person listening to that would be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, that's kind of fucked up to ask someone how much money they make within the
It's
first
so
like
rude.
few questions." But like, explain to me how much different what do you do for a living is appropriate when you meet someone, and the second question you ask them is, what do you do for a living? Because you're kind of like classifying them.
Yeah.
You're trying to you're trying to rank them. You're trying to
Yeah.
find out, maybe there's information about like they don't want to share, but you're like,
Correct.
what do you do for a living? It's like, I don't
And on the
figure.
receiving end, Nick, think about it. So if you had asked me, what do I do for a living? On the receiving, I'm like, why are you asking? Like, are you judging? Are you trying to put
Yeah.
me on like, no, that's real shit. Like, and I think a lot of people struggle with that in today's time. I remember going to so many networking parties and stuff, and you probably did too. You go out to these celebrity events, and that, I mean, if they don't already know you, for example, it's like, oh, what do you do? Who do you know? I hate that about entertainment and media sometimes. And I think more and more, a lot of people are starting to hate it, which means it's a conversation we're finally having. really quickly on that. And we have, well, I mean, listen, I want to get into risk taking with you, anxiety, taking care of yourself, and natural habits. But before that, do you think that for you, when you approach people, I mean, and what are some of your first thoughts when you meet new people, for example, especially if they already kind of know who you are and what you're about? Are you at a point where now you're like, all right, the fame is one thing, the celebrity is one thing, what I'm doing, but then I kind of just want friends that, or people in my life who aren't in the same arena as myself.
Yeah, I mean, I when I meet people, I'm a little more introverted. I'm a little more quiet, and I observe. Um, and if I have to talk, then like I try to just ask basic questions.
Yeah.
What brought you here? Kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, well, the weather was great, but I like just kind of listening to people talk and you get a read on people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've been guilty of asking people what do they do before, like
Sure.
it was, because again, it's like it's become part of our kind of getting to know you
It's like a cultural
vocabulary.
norm.
Yeah, and but I just kind of I try to ask. You can learn a lot about people just by asking basic questions and just listening. Or just kind of put it on them. You like if I met you, that seems like a nice sweater. I'd be like, oh, it's a really cool sweater, man. Where'd you get it? You
Scotch and
know?
soda, bro.
Yeah, like, oh, Scotch and soda. I was there one time, and then you tell a story about the time you're at Scotch and soda, and like you got a sale on a shirt, and the next thing you know, you're talking for 10 minutes. You haven't had to
That's
share
it.
any personal information about yourself.
That's it.
That's what I try to do because I definitely have become. I've always been a bit guarded, and I certainly have become more guarded, and not always the best ways since doing this and being out in
I get it. Where'd you get your sweatshirt from? I
LA.
didn't see the logo yet.
That's
The
a Viall
Viall
Yeah, it's
Files.
merch. It's which I honestly like. I was recording a podcast earlier, but I just generally like these sweatshirts. So,
Oh, that's the perfect. Where can we find them? Are they
but
available
also
for sale? Or
viallfiles.com.
come
So
on, right? Forward slash any forward slash? No.
no, I think it's just viallfiles.com. Yeah,
He said, I think I'm dead, Nick. All right. I want to get into something else with you. Risk taking. So you bought a house not too long ago in Los Angeles. That's a huge risk. I'm all about
yeah.
risks. I moved from Japan a long time ago to pursue a career in media. So I was like, all right, mom, let's go to Tennessee. I'll get my degree and we'll move to New York City together and I'll start working for NBC and we'll make it happen. But you're the same kind of person, I feel like, because you've also mentioned, after doing something for so long, you go do these shows and you do something that you love. But I remember hearing that you left something important to you to do something that you had loved. And essentially now you're running your own business and doing all the great digital and social things. Why would you recommend people take risks in their lives today? Like literally today, if they wanted to do it today?
Well, why would I recommend people take risks?
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, I think that's kind of how you can't reach your full potential if you don't take any risks, right? Like
Mm,
it's weird because if you would have asked me if I thought I was a risk taker in my early 20s, I think I would have said no. I was a rule follower when I was a kid. I didn't. Uh, yeah, I was a rule follower, and I think inherently because I was a rule follower, I felt like I just kind of was stayed in my lane, so to speak, as they say.
yeah.
And I grew up in Wisconsin. I lived in, then after I went to school at Wisconsin, and then I lived in Milwaukee. So like my whole world was within a 20. How can you be that much of a risk taker if you
Yeah.
spend most of your life in a single place? And then ever since kind of actually like right before when I actually took the job at Salesforce, I had a job offer at Oracle, and I was going to move to San Francisco, and I was really torn on which job I should take, and ultimately I was kind of making a list, and I kind of asked myself the question is, if I do the work and I succeed, uh, which opportunity do I want?
Yeah.
And I've always kind of had this mantra of betting on myself, right? And that's not to sound arrogant or anything like that, because you have to be smart about what's realistic and what's in front of you and what will it take to achieve your goals. But if you have to be willing to put in the work, and if you can do that, then I'm always going to I was always going to take the risk of betting on my ability to work through the challenges. And if I did that, is that the opportunity I wanted? And
Mm,
for me, those were the risks I was willing to take. Cause I've never taken crazy risks. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
I don't think I've taken reckless risks,
sure, sure.
like I said, I wouldn't have gone on the show if the company was like, hey, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, we're not fucking around with a reality TV show. We're serious. We're a big company. Like, and I would have been like, that makes sense. I
Like,
get it.
thanks, thanks, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Yeah.
But so I'm willing to take smart risks, calculated risks, and then risks that like are up to me.
Hmm.
I have to be able, for me to take a risk, I have to have some control in the outcome, right? I can't just buy a lottery ticket and hope for the best, right? I have to set myself up for success, and that might take a lot of work, and there definitely might be luck involved, but like you have to, if I can control a lot of the pieces, and if I can do the work and work really hard, then there's
Yeah.
risks I'm willing to take, if that makes sense.
Boom.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. I think that your answer to that really kind of helps us redefine what it means to share the narratives of our guests, and that's what we wanted, right? Like your story and how you were able to take some of these I guess you can call them calculated risks for the most part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then trust and bet on yourself, dude. Something else I was thinking about when I started researching natural habits and the fact that you launched a company of essential oils. I like essential oils, bro. I get back from the gym and I'm smelling
Yeah.
lemongrass and all these
Well,
things, and
I'll send
people
you
don't
some.
take
Yeah.
advantage of it enough. And I'm gonna go buy Natural Habits right after this, right? We can probably find you there, but we'll put the plug in at the end of the show. You know, I uh, man, I have to ask you if it started when you realized you were maybe suffering or had realized you had anxiety, or this is a coping mechanism for the most part for most people. Essential oils is something that people will either diffuse, or I sniff the bottle itself. As weird as it sounds, I will just smell the bottle of the little
Yeah, well, I
tube.
mean, a lot of essential oils is aromatherapy, and
Right.
it definitely was. I started using essential oils because I do struggle with anxiety. My sister's a holistic nutritionist
Mm,
in her profession, and she's a part of Natural Habits too. And so she's the one who introduced me to essential oils to begin with. She's like, hey, like she's always looking for non-invasive approaches to deal with any kind of health, I guess, condition or ailment
sure.
that we might have. And so, and to me, it first kind of sounded kind of voodoo-ish, kind of
Yeah.
silly. But I was like, I don't know, I'll try it, like whatever,
Yeah.
it's no harm. And it helped. It helps relax because it's part of it is like, oh, a
The
lot of
senses,
anxiety.
right?
A lot of anxiety is about your breathing. If you control your breathing, and some of it is just the mindfulness to slow down, right? And then there
Hmm.
are just actual proven medicinal benefits of essential oils, like and so it helped me, and I figured like I wanted to create a company that with myself as the end user in mind, like
Mm.
I'm not I'm still not like this big, like, oh, let me like nerd out about essential oils and do blends. Like, yeah, we developed blends, but like I wanted something that I could use, right? And you can blend essential oils to enhance their benefits. So like for the people who do struggle with headaches, instead of taking ibuprofen every goddamn day for a headache, not good for your uh
Colon.
well, a lot of things, right? And so, like, and listen, it might not help everyone, right?
Yeah.
But like, I always thought if you can have a kind of a safer, non-invasive approach, like as opposed to like, Febreze all over your house, all those toxins, right? You're spraying and
Oh man, I just
like
sprayed my bed
that's
with
yeah,
Febreze this morning.
terrible stuff, right? So, essential oils could be a much healthier approach to just like scenting your indoor air. And so,
Yeah.
but it was always important to me because the essential oil, and that's how what I started Natural Habits for, is because when I first tried essential oils, if you uh, they have a strong alignment to MLM companies, like multi-level marketing companies, which
Yep.
are terrible, and there's a lot of negative things that go on with that. But so like here I was like, here's this like thing that brought a positive aspect to my life, but has a negative connotation through uh, how they got started. And so
Yeah.
I just did the research and the work, and try to bring something simple to a need that I had to my customer, or to customers out there who didn't want to get involved in multi-level marketing bullshit, but also wanted to have the benefits of essential oils. And we're very conservative in kind of how we market it too. Like, like a lot of there's, they get a bad rap to the essential oils. Like, listen, it's not a cure-all, man. Like, it is not going to, if you have like an emotional situation as a childhood, like essential oil isn't going to fix that, man. You might need to talk to a therapist or something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
But it won't cure a disease. Like it doesn't help
Sure.
with COVID, right? Stuff like that. But it can be mindful. It can help with headaches. It can help you relax and sleep better. It can give you a boost of energy. It has properties to support your immune system. But and I think that's really important for us to make sure that people understand that, because people can abuse the marketing behind essential oils.
Yeah, and then I always hear people thinking about putting it in the diffuser itself, and it starts smelling like mildew, blah 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 blah. But we'll have to check out your natural habits, man. I think
Yeah, check
it's
it out. Like a diffuser right there, man.
right. Look at it. Look at it right behind his head. That's interesting because I feel like a lot of times people who are looking to cope with anxiety are going to therapy straight up. And listen, by all means, I support it, but it's like nobody really brings up aromatherapy or essential oils when they're talking about anxiety and stuff. And you mentioned you struggle with it, but I feel like you've probably got a good hand on it at this point. And after having studied it and stuff, but where did you realize, or I guess at what point did you realize you might have been struggling with mental anxiety, and do you feel like it was a lot of what was going on with your professional life and having been on the shows and stuff, or has it always been a thing for you? And then how are you ultimately coping with it?
I think it's always been a thing, but like I don't think I ever realized it was a thing, because having anxiety is kind of, it's like kale. We didn't talk about kale 15 years ago. It was
It's
invented.
true.
We didn't
Yeah.
talk about anxiety either, right? So
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
this kind of, I was described as sometimes as an anxious person, but we didn't like give it a diagnosis or a label. And so
Huh.
but when and then so definitely after the show, like certain times, like I can be very extroverted, but I think I'm more introverted in nature. And so there'd be certain times I'd be around people and I would just like, I kind of felt like my chest would explode. I think there are certain, I've always had that in me. But certainly aspects of the show and coming off the show kind of intensified that. And you start hearing about anxiety and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that shit, like
Right.
uh and
Yeah.
then you just kind of look into it. And again, I'm not big. I mean, for me, I'm not big on pharmaceutical stuff. And I understand there's can be a need for it, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not here to tell someone whether they should or shouldn't take it. But I always like to look at all the alternatives before I start,
Yeah.
taking, pharmaceutical
Medications.
drugs. And so,
Sure.
and it's not just essential oil. I mean, like eating right, breathing right, exercising. I mean, I just I've been a mouth breather a lot of my life. I had a deviated septum when I ran track in college and had that fixed. But apparently there's some interesting studies about like just the benefits of breathing through your nose,
Sure. Sure.
and having that be a reason why you could help with your anxiety. And so um, I'm a big believer in most problems, there's not just one solution. And oftentimes you have to do a little bit of a lot of things to solve any one problem.
Mm. What does your day to day look like then in that case? I feel like when I'm often thinking about it too, I'm the same way. I'm like, well, I'm not an expert. I would never claim to be one. I don't really think too much about the doctoral things that happen for people that suffer with anxiety. Or say, for example, take your busy life, right?
Yeah.
Your day to day. I don't know who manages your calendar. I don't have a manager to manage my calendar. So you're probably like me. You're just plotting shit on there and you're like, oh my
I
God, did I?
didn't, but now I do. And I got to say, it's a goddamn godsend.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That calendar
Yeah.
saves people's lives. If you're listening right now, get you an Outlook or like a whatever calendar, 365, Office 365. But when I mean, listen, our days are like you only got so much time in the day to do as much as you can. So when you're not in meetings, recording the podcast, doing things for social, you know, doing whatever it might be for Bachelor, Bachelorette Nation, what does your day to day look like? And when you're thinking about really being healthy and just making sure every single day you're treating as if you need to just maintain health.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's a great question on something I've thought about recently. I think I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I'm not saying that as like a good thing. I'm in a new relationship, and it's been something that we've talked about in terms of knowing when to kind of turn things off.
Nick, you work too much.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like I'm self-employed, right? And so there's
Yeah,
a lot of anxiety and anxiousness around that for me. And I came
yeah.
from kind of a corporate America mindset. So like, like you don't get vacation days kind of thing. And so
Mm,
I'm very aware of how lucky I am and the opportunity I have. And so I put a lot of pressure on me to make it sure it keeps going. So I do struggle sometimes knowing when to turn it off and stopping the workday, so to
Mm.
speak. And so, uh, so I'm always thinking of something. I'm in my head a lot. I'm constantly, if I'm not working, I'm thinking about work or things like that. And I don't
Sure.
say that as like a humble brag. I think it's a negative thing. I think it doesn't help with my anxiety. And I think, yeah, I mean, day to day, I wake up, I start my day. I probably spend a little too much on my phone. I have my coffee, and then I'm usually going to the studio to podcast something. And after a podcast, I'll sit down with, my little creative team I have, and we'll talk ideas and talk about plans, and whether it's for the podcast or for social, and also writing a book, and there's just a bunch of little pieces I have in my
Yeah.
head,
Because
and
it's
so
all under your world too. That's where
yeah,
it gets addicting, isn't it? It's like
exactly.
Nick Viall is the umbrella and everything underneath it is still managed and operated by you. You could have 10 people under your team. I think you got probably 10, 15 people, right? But then he's like, wait, maybe I do.
Well, it depends on who work people who work for me and people who work with me. If you combine them all, sure. But
Combine them all for a minute, man. You got a
yeah,
lot of people that are supporting you on this front of your brand. And I get it. It gets addicting. And something that I was going to ask you too about. And first of all, thanks for opening up about that. I feel like that's not something people admit to is workaholicism. I've said it on a couple episodes of this show. It's real. It's like you go to bed and you're like, dang, it's like 11 or 12, but I got all these ideas. Should I write them down? Should I wait till the morning? But then also there's no cyclical 9 to 5 schedule anymore where you can say, all right, I'll wait till 9 and I'll close out the door at 5 and I won't think about it till the next day because you are your own boss, you're self-employed, and essentially like any opportunity you're not saying yes to today, it's probably missed tomorrow, right? Like and
yeah,
so I get it, but at the same time, you everybody's always talking about this idea of balance and how the entrepreneur lifestyle is very much like you kind of get to do whatever the hell you want. So I wanted to bring up this idea of social life with you because I feel like in the world of entertainment and media, Nick, especially like kind of that's where I feel like our worlds cross and seesaw with each other because you might come from entertainment, I might come from media, but essentially we're hanging out with the same people. But something I'm always hearing in our industries is that you're not really working and you're not really like playing around. I feel like everything's blended together, which is why everybody in our industries essentially feel like they're working every single day, but then also like partying with the people that they work with or taking their, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
I wanted
yeah,
your thoughts on that. Cause like, that's why every single day feels like a full fucking 24 hours. And every day feels like you're like, you might have colleagues, but they're probably your friends, right? Or you might have people in the industry that are calling you about an opportunity that's like paid and you can get millions of dollars for. But then essentially it's still like, oh, that's my buddy from The Bachelor that's like pitching that idea to me. So like, it just, all your worlds are all kind of in one, which I think is a benefit. What do you think?
it can be. I think I'm one of those guys. Like anything can be a positive or a negative. It's just kind of how you use it.
Yeah,
Especially like in this time. I mean, granted, we're in a pandemic right now, so things are a little bit different. But you kind of talk about like parties or social events being considered work, and they certainly can be, right?
sure.
But for a lot of people, they confuse the two, right? And maybe they
Yeah.
should be working, but they're too busy like having a good time, and then the party's over. They're like, I didn't really accomplish anything. I
Yeah,
just
but you were
party.
hanging, but yeah, but part of
Yeah,
that's relationships, don't you think? So let
yeah,
me ask you
it
about
can be
that.
for sure.
May-
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
But
that's the question. Like these industries are so much about relationships. Like I'm sure some of the guests that have come on your show, I'm sure some of the people you've had to work with, it's like, oh, well, yeah, we know Nick, we love Nick. Or oh,
yeah,
wait, it's all about the relationships, which means sometimes you got to go entertain and party with them, but then like, you know, I don't know.
I could be better at that too. I think again, I'm my introverted side or my analytical side or my side that's in my head more will have a it should probably loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I could probably maybe even get more accomplished by not working in those moments, right? And just enjoying the present. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough to
Let's make a vow.
yeah,
Let's make a vow right now on this episode that post pandemic, during the pandemic, whatever that looks like for Nick Viall, you'll take some risks, like we said earlier, right? You got to bet on yourself a little bit here and trust that whenever you do open up a little more to be more social or what have you, and kind of get away from the computers or whatever you're into, And
Oh, when the
whenever,
pandemic's done, man, I'm gonna have a ball. Like I think everyone's itching to get out.
yeah,
And
I know.
I do like going to events, but like sometimes I think I just try to be more mindful on of being like being present. I think is one of the hardest things we all have, especially now. And now more than ever, it's becoming harder and harder to be present
Mm,
in the moment that we're in, and it's something I've always struggled with. And I think social media and our phones have made it even harder. And then add the pandemic, and everyone's just bored and anxious and wanting to do stuff, and
yeah,
so
yeah,
and they're channeling their energy in kind of
yeah.
toxic spaces. And it's yeah, I think we all need to get outside and let loose a little bit.
We
um
will. We will.
yeah.
I'll have our team call you when we come out to Los Angeles. We'll go out when it makes sense. Pump or whatever. I remember the last time we were out in LA last November. It was the week before Los Angeles had closed down.
Oh,
And
really?
we
Yeah.
were at Pump, Lisa Vanderpump's spot. And I remember I was looking at the waiters around. I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this because everybody was at the one. I can't remember the bar next to the Pump. I forget, whatever. It was like lined out the door. Everybody had masks on, but they were like 2 inches apart. And my
Yeah.
friends and I were walking by, and everybody's like, "What the hell is this? Everybody's so close together." And there's the Abbey. Everybody's at the Abbey.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, I was gonna guess the Abbey, but I should have guessed.
West Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
And the week after it shut down. But you're right. One post pandemic, I think people are going to be super excited to get out. I got kind of what I call a. We're gonna close up here in just a second, buddy. But I got what is like a deep drunk question. So something I was often thinking about. I was building your run a show, and I was like, "What the hell am I gonna ask Nick as we start closing out the show?" But we've kind of alluded to it this whole time, which is why I'm confident to ask you. But when you think about life and what we're doing, why we're doing it, right? You got your podcast, you got your business, you got all these other things that are kind of sewn through that bachelorette life that you had, man. And there's so much beauty to all of it, even though some people will always say like, oh, 7 years ago he was the enemy or what have you. But like, listen, it's TV, it's showbiz, right? But the real Nick Viall, you're pursuing this podcast, pursuing the business. So when it all boils down to it, I think a lot of times people are often thinking like, what's the most money I can make? How much fame can I get? How much success can I get? What's the biggest house and the biggest car, right? Like there's all this bullshit that I think life kind of has. And I was asking myself, I was like, well, when it all bottles down to what we want, shouldn't it just be for that we want the best for ourselves and the people around us? And then with all possibilities that we're building something that is worth looking back on. That said, when you kind of like simplify everything, and I've always told people, I'm like, simplicity, I read this a long time ago, I don't know who coined it, I will quote them a little later. Simplicity is the ultimate sign of sophistication, especially when you get so busy like yourself, Nick. But boil that shit all the way down to like pre-fame, pre-bachelor, pre-bachelorette. I'm curious to get your thoughts, like your off the record thoughts here in terms of like what you're wanting to build and kind of like why you're in pursuit of all of these things that keep you busy and on all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a great question. I think as you get older, it's weird because like people talk about legacy and things like that, and I don't know if I'll have a legacy of any kind, but I do know I'm aware that I have at least some sort of platform, and I do. And the reason I say legacy is like I is it's like I do want to be proud of what I'm doing, like
Mm,
especially on the podcast. I am proud of the show because I think we have some fun, but I think my audience and myself will learn from like the stuff we put out, and that
yeah.
feels good. Like especially through the experts and the relationship conversations we have. I want to enjoy life and have a little coin in my pocket and be able to have some fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and there's a sense of pride of looking back on what you accomplished. I mean, I have pride in me. And yeah, I don't know, the meaning of life type of stuff. Like who knows, man. Like but yeah, I think it is important to me now. Like I just want to look back and be proud of what I did.
Mm,
And I think that keeps me in check, especially and making sure I don't take things for granted and I don't get too careless. And I want to be proud of myself and hope that the people in my kind of peripheral are proud of me as well, whether it's my fans or my family or my partner, and I guess the rest is gravy.
The rest is gravy. Can I name your episode title that? The rest
Sure.
is gravy.
Yeah, sure.
Nick, man, we're gonna get into a game of questions of the hour. I couldn't have asked to spend the last hour with anybody else. You know, your story, and again, there's the educational component to the top of this whole thing, man. Like, I hadn't watched some of the shows, and a part of me was like, should I go watch? Like, I thought about it, like this past weekend when we found out that we were gonna get you on the show. I was like, should I go watch some of those seasons? Right. But then, like, there's all these preconceived notions, and then there's that 7 years ago mentality that I would have had going into this interview. But like, you educated me on The Bachelor, right? You opened up about some stuff that I'm really grateful for. But man, I think it's going to come down to the fact that you have such a successful podcast right now, over 200 episodes on the Viall Files, and you have your company now, right, with your sister. And I think there's a lot going for you. If you look at the highway ahead, I think you don't really need to be anxious, and you don't really need to kind of question or doubt anything that you're doing, because you have built an incredible platform. So I want to leave some room here. I want to ask you what's coming up for the podcast and the business. What are your hopes and pursuits, I guess, for the rest of the year, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, definitely continue to grow the Viall Files. And the show is always evolving, but especially kind of the relationship aspect stuff, we hope to continue to grow. We definitely believe in what we're doing, and every time someone new finds our show,
Yeah.
they seem to really be glad they did, and that's something I do take a lot of pride in. And we'll keep trying to have fun and interesting guests on, and see where it goes. As far as Natural Habit goes, like we're keeping it small and nimble, and obviously we were conservative with the pandemic and kind of the unknown. We're looking to maybe launch a CBD oil line as well, because there's
Oh, great.
similar use cases for that. And again, it's another kind of industry. There's a lot of questions and unknown, and quite frankly, a lot of maybe abuse. And I'm just trying to take the things that I've learned in those spaces, and bring a safe and usable benefit to my customers. So we'll be looking to do that. By the end of this year, and and then we'll see, other hosting stuff I continue to work on, and been fortunate enough to have opportunities in that space and grow, and we'll see where their acting career goes.
And the rest is gravy.
The rest is gravy, man. Yeah.
Nick, our time is up here on the podcast, buddy, and I'm a little sad about it, but I'm also super stoked, because we're not going to stop the fun here. We're going to take the fun over to YouTube, play a game of questions of the hour with you. We're going to ask 20 rapid fire questions with you, buddy. Some of the fun that we didn't have on the podcast, we're going to leave to the last 5 minutes of the episode. For those tuning in right now, thank you for being here. Nick is on all of your social platforms under his name, Nick Viall. Nickviall. His podcast is The Viall Files, and his company's Natural Habitats. Check all of it out on social and on the web, my friends. And until then, we'll see you on YouTube. But thanks for being here, and continue building the best version of yourself. All right, my friend.
Thanks so much.
So, Nick Viall, here we are. Like we never left the Zoom call, because we didn't. It's time to play a game of questions of the hour with Nick Viall. We all know him from our favorite shows, The Bachelor, The Bachelor in Paradise, and The Bachelorette. This guy's hilarious. He's funny and he's fun. So we're going to ask him 20 questions that we've grabbed from his fans and our team, just to get to know our friend a little bit better. Nick, are you ready, buddy?
I'm ready.
Do you have any hidden talents that you haven't yet told anyone?
I don't think so. I mean,
I'm an open book.
Yeah, I like everyone to know my talents. Why would I hide a talent? Yeah, no, I don't. Trust me, if I have a talent, you've seen it on my Instagram. And I think 2 years ago, yeah, like people didn't know I could paint or roller skate, but that's all out there.
Oh, we can paint and roller skate now. Can you do a backflip? If not, I'll teach you.
I can't do a backflip, but I am an excellent roller skater.
I love that. What's your favorite childhood game growing up?
Monopoly.
Oh, Monopoly.
Or Risk.
Yeah. Risk. My most recent favorite's Cards Against Humanities, but that's because it's good to play when you're drunk, right?
Yeah. I'll play it. It's not my favorite.
What was the best purchase you've made recently?
My house. I'm super into the house.
Oh, fun. I love that. If you could change your name, what would you change it to?
My mom's maiden name is Parker, and I feel like Nick Parker's way better than Nick Viall, but what are you going to do?
Can't do too much unless you want to go through all the law restrictions about it. What's
Well,
your
yeah,
favorite?
then I joined SAG, and because people knew me as Nick Viall, I was like, well, kind of have to stick with it now.
Yeah, you do. You could build out
Uh,
a stage name a little later.
uh, I don't have P Diddy's power influence.
Yeah, I was gonna say. What's your favorite alcoholic drink? You just took a sip of it.
I'm a whiskey drinker, and when it comes to the spirits, and I like wine. I'm not a big alcoholic drinker. I'll have it from time to time, but not super into the booze.
Wish I could say the same. What song can you not stop listening to right now?
Right now,
Hmm.
um, what's it called? It's by I'm gonna get the name wrong. It's gonna be embarrassing. Hold
Uh-oh.
on, hold
They'll get
on,
mad
hold
at
on.
you, buddy. We're
Oh,
recording
I
this.
know, I know. Hold on. It's Good Days. Good Days by
By
Saza. How do you is it
SZA.
SZA? Is that my
Oh,
pronouncing
nice.
SZA?
Good
Good Days.
Days by SZA. Looks like you
Yeah.
had a little bit too much whiskey. I'm kidding. Craziest thing you've ever done in your life, man.
Going the Bachelor, probably.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
If your life was a movie, what theme song would you pick for it? You can say Good Days by SZA.
Yeah, it'd be some sort of like goofy kind of like a dark comedy.
Yeah. If What catchphrase do you like to use, either from TV or from social media?
Catchphrase? Like, what's an example of a catchphrase?
Ooh, like, ooh, got him. Or what are those?
Huh.
Trying to think of some.
I don't think I use catchphrases.
Coronavirus, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I use catchphrases.
Good to know, Nick.
I don't know. Like, I'll quote movies, but I don't think that counts.
Well, okay, so then what's your favorite quote of a movie?
Forgetting Sarah Marshall is probably one of my favorite quotable movies. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Is there anything you regret from your time on The Bachelorette or The Bachelor?
Overall, no, but there's certainly like small moments of like, if you could do it differently, I'd make adjustments for sure, but overall, I'm here talking to you. I'm in my house. Like, I guess,
Have
I don't know if I could have, it all worked out. And
the
I
rest is
think
gravy.
the rest is gravy. Yeah.
Third time's the charm. So, what was the best advice you've ever received? Maybe from your dad, from friends, colleagues, bosses, whoever.
Uh, Shit happens,
Mm,
you know?
I thought you were going to say the rest is gravy. So, we coined you, Nick,
Uh,
the
uh,
man of the hour on this episode of the show. But if you could crown a guy in your life, someone you've looked up to, someone you've met or encountered, a man of the hour, who would that be and why?
I'm gonna say Justin Long.
Yeah.
Justin has been recently on my podcast a few times. I've joked about to him and my audience, and I'm actively trying to be his best friend.
Isn't
But in
it the
all
best
serious,
feeling?
yeah. But he really is like, I don't know him even that well, but he seems like a genuinely good guy, and he's someone that I've gotten to know and try to take some notes from him in terms of how he goes about his life, and
Oh,
so I'll say Justin Long for now.
Justin Long. I hope you're listening, Justin Long. You guys be
Yeah,
best friends.
I hope if you're out, he knows I have a bit of a man crush on Justin, but no, I think he's an overall good guy, and yeah, I think, well, it's not necessarily a mentor, but like, I think you meet people and you observe people and you think, yeah, I like how they do that, and I don't do that, and I could be better for it by taking that note. So
So the next question is like, what has been your best experience with a celebrity thus far? Are you going to say Justin Long on your podcast?
no, best experience with
Like
I mean,
best.
well, I mean, people know I briefly dated January Jones, and she's a friend, but I mean, she legit was a celeb crush of mine. So to end up dating your celeb crush, 10 years later, that was pretty wild. Again, I don't look at it that way now,
Yeah.
but I was once, a kid living in Milwaukee watching Mad Men, and so that was just the story is surreal, but I guess that was cool, but and it was, the first date was bizarre, but it was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening.
Man,
Yeah,
because shit happens.
because
How
shit,
old?
shit happens.
How old were you when you had your first kiss, and how would you rate it 1 to 10?
I was in 7th grade, so what would that make me? 12 or 13?
Yep.
I had 10, man. I thought it was great. I remember sprinting home.
Oh,
I was a track star in high school and college, but I don't think I ever ran as fast as I did. I was just excited. I don't, I thought it was great. So I must have been thrilled. I don't have a bad memory of it. So I hope she feels the same way.
I wonder who she is. We'll find out later. What's the last book you read, and would you recommend it to us?
The last book I read, I think it was, it's been a couple months. Malcolm Gladwell's book, is it Goliath? Samson? No, not Samson, but with Goliath in the title.
Might be behind you. You got all these books behind you. I'm trying to find out.
It's not. Well, it was an audio tape. I downloaded it, so I don't have any audio. But anything Malcolm Gladwell writes, I'm a huge fan of, and the name is escaping me, but that was the last book I read.
All we needed to know,
or
buddy.
Listen to.
That's it, Malcolm Gladwell. If you could choose between spending a day on the beach or skiing on a mountain, which one would it be?
The beach. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Let's say you, me, and some friends go out to dinner to your favorite restaurant. Where would we be going? And what would be your favorite go-to appetizer, dish, and dessert?
Din Tai Fung. And I get the cucumber salad as an appetizer, and the pork shang long. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Or the rice cakes are pretty good too. And nice. I don't even bother with dessert because it's the main course is too
filling.
Wonderful. Yeah.
If you invent an app tomorrow, what do you think the world could use right now?
I mean, if I knew, I'd invent it and become a millionaire. I don't. You got an idea I can steal?
I don't know. We'll talk offline about it.
If I could invent an app, I wish I could invent something that allowed people to. I don't think but like an app that would notify you when you're full of shit, so that you couldn't lie to yourself. Of course, this app would be going off nonstop because we're the biggest liars we'll ever meet. But no one will lie to you more than yourself. But that would be it.
Great. Shit happens, dude. Last question for you. Since you're totally a relationship guy, unlike myself, any top advice you got from me if I ever get into dating?
You don't date? Are you not dating?
No.
You'll get over it, but
shit happens and you'll get over it.
Yeah, and I really stand by that. I mean, I think you'll get over it, and I say that to people who want to find somebody, right? Not the person who's out there fucking around and doing that shit, but the person, guy or girl, who's like, I want to meet someone someday, and if you have an earnest desire to meet someone, then most likely in that pursuit of finding someone, you're going to get hurt a few times, and that's okay, but you will get over it. And you should just keep swinging, shoot or shoot, man. And you gotta strike out to hit home runs.
Yeah, and shoot your shot. Some good advice, dude. So listen, I've chose not to. But dude, thanks for playing Questions of the Hour, man. Nick Viall, everybody, thank you for being today's Man of the Hour on the Man of the Hour podcast, buddy.
Thanks for having me.